Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Married Lifers. This recording is in regards to the Colorado Department. We had a citizens advocate meeting today with, the heads of the Colorado prisons and the wardens. It's like everybody that's important, basically. So like the director of prisons, there was a lot of people today. So it was a long meeting. It was an exhausting meeting. The one thing I do want to say is I did push this meeting, not only in my Lyman group, but also in the Colorado loved ones groups that we have here. I was happy because in December, it was like one section of family, like 2 rows, and it wasn't even full. And there was very few questions. This go round, we had a ton of questions. That's why it was so long. And we actually got answers this time. And there was a lot more family that showed up to support the loved ones. So I'm going to touch on a few things that I wrote down, like the questions that were asked and talked about. The number one question that they did bring up, that they started out with, that Matthew Henson, the executive director's right-hand man, was my question. And the question I had asked was about normalization, our humanization of the inmates, right? So they said, anybody that's been in this journey and knows what's been going on the last 2 years, Dean Williams was the director at first, right? And he got pushed out of his position. He was a really good director. He was pushing for transparency and normalization. So I asked, is that still a goal? Is normalization still a goal, or is that gone with Dean Williams? They said that normalization has always been a goal. They didn't really want to use the word normalization. So I was like, humanization, whatever you want to call it. Like, you got to treat these men and women like people instead of animals. You know what I mean? So they said that that they're working on that in steps. So they felt like they couldn't do it parallel, that it had to be done in steps, right? So the first step is to work on the staff, getting the staff trained, getting them because they lost focus with COVID. This was their response. They had lost focus with COVID, and that they're going to do it in steps to get everything to be at a better place. So they're addressing the staff first, and then they're going to move on from there. They didn't say what the move from there was going to be, just that they needed to address their staff first. There's a lot of staff trainings going on right now that is a part of all of that. And then they did talk about the grievance issues, about being able to do grievances. So right now out here, we have steps where the men and their women have to exhaust their steps. And there's a bunch of steps within the DOC policy that they have to do before they can go outside. So the question was asked if there can be an outside sourcing for that job, so that makes it fair. And they said that wouldn't be possible because there's guidelines that they have to follow. That's set by the state. They also touched on inmates being able to influence the ARs, which is our policy, what they go by. So they're working on something to do with to get that going. Also, there's a group that's called Legislation on the Inside group that they're asking us to try. Well, not asking us, but if you want to be a part of that, to get involved in that, because that's going to help with, for example, they talked a lot about the private prisons. Like a lot of states, that's against a lot of have private prisons in some states, and they want to push that here, but we would have to go through the legislation to do that, legislators and stuff. So they talked about that. They did go into great detail about earned time. And then somebody brought up the debate right now about moving violent offenders from serving 75% of their time to 85% of the time. There's going to be something I'll put out about that. They talked about the restorative justice program, the education, apology letters, victim and emotional hygiene. Lenny from Food Services talked about the food services and laundry. And he also touched on doctors being able to see providers outside of the prison. He said that that is possible, that there's a form that's the 700-21 app to see an outside doctor if you need that. They also said that they have telehealth, which is something we have. Like I'm able to do that with my provider where I could make a video visit with her and discuss my issues. They have that, which is ongoing right now with outside providers for the prison. Then they talked about the internal rating system for the P code, which is, mental issue stuff. They got into Suboxone a little bit, but not really. It just basically touched on it. And then the eye exams. So that was one of my questions too, is like, just medical services in general, like why does it take so long? My husband, for example, waited like 1.5 years to be able to see an eye doctor. And then it was basically hell to get him his glasses. So they said what happened is they're going with this. They got a new contractor right now. And it's 2020 Eye Committee or Communication, something like that was the name of it. But they just started so that our loved ones can see at least a difference on that. They were talking about having 15 to 20 outside agencies for medical staff. So what that means is, I think he said something like, don't quote me, but he said something like there's 300 positions for medical staff in Colorado DOC. 256 are filled, right? So the rest of that leaves 40 something, 44, something like that. Anyways, that is not open positions. They said that's for staffing agencies. So they go through medical staffing agencies to fill those positions, and they're temporary because they're not DOC employees. They touched on the food services with the food not being edible. I got to get the address. I apologize for this, guys. There was so much stuff to write down, but I think it was Lenny. Let me reach out to one of the other girls that was there. But he said to send a detailed letter to him about the issues going on with the non-edible food. He said what they're doing right now is they're having staff just pop up at the facilities and eat the food. They're popping up just on random days where the facility doesn't know, and they're eating what they're serving the inmates to see what's going on. I did complain about that as well, because it doesn't matter what week it is. Every single time they serve chicken, it's pink, it's undercooked. Like my husband can't eat that. And a lot of stuff they try to feed him is still frozen. You know what I mean? Or moldy. They complained about all that. So now they're doing these pop-up visits to see what's going on. So that, to me, that's a good sign. Like they're at least trying to see and help us with that. I did ask him about a lot of food at the facility my husband's at gets thrown away, right? So I asked him, like, why can't that be given to the inmates? Like a second helping, if you will. And they said that it wouldn't be fair to everybody, so they can't do that. They talked about the indigent hygiene packets, that they're still available for people that don't have money. And then they talked about job assignments. That was a big concern. That's a big concern for a lot of people. When your loved one is moved from one facility to the other, they can have a really good job at the facility they're currently at. And then when they get moved, they're sitting there, doing nothing for 6 months. They can't get a job where they're at. So right now they're working on that as well with the case managers to make sure that people are getting assigned jobs, hopefully equal to what they came from. A lot of the questions were aimed towards 3 major facilities. So it was Ark Valley, Fremont, and Sterling. Sterling was a lot. They're talking about the rec at Sterling. Sterling, I guess, has issues with their rec. They haven't been able to go outside for rec for a long time. And they said that's due to a bunch of issues, but one of them is the construction is a big issue out there. Again, I asked about privileges. Like, so for example, we got guys that are in a level 3, which is supposedly a step down from level 4. It's better. But in a level 4 facility, they have the freedom to move around. They don't have to wear their greens everywhere. They can actually wear like their sweats, their shorts when it's hot outside for movement. In a level, they can do that in a level 4. In a level 3, they have to wear greens everywhere. They're trying to blame that on the facility itself, like the older facilities, which doesn't make sense. I brought up, like being able to wear thermals and their sweats underneath their clothes when it's cold, because they get in trouble for that too. And they said they shouldn't be, that needs to be brought up to the warden's attention. They talked about moving the inmates and everything that goes into that. They brought up the AR 600-01 if you want more information on that. They talked about the education and programs that they're trying to bring back and that they currently have. Right now, they said, just for an example, Sterling has 120 job openings for CO staff and staff as the teachers, programs, stuff like that. In Sterling, they still have treatment programs. They talked about, somebody asked about the culinary food program, asking if they could bring that culinary food program back to Sterling and if it could be sold at visits and food sales. So he didn't say anything about the visit, but he did say that they're going to be having food sales coming up for Sterling. The one thing I do want to point out is a lot of questions, especially the questions I had asked, they were deferring us to our wardens. So I guess I can get into that, because one of the wives showed up and it kind of got a little, I don't even know what word to use for it. Aggressive, if you will. She got up and, at the end, we're able to ask questions. So she got up and she asked, like, there's obviously a disconnect between the families and what we go through and the staff, and then all of the heads of the prison system, right? So there's a disconnect there. So the heads are saying, oh, there's accountability, there's this, there's that. But when the families deal with the staff and with the wardens, there's not. There's a disconnect there. So, all the heads of the departments don't see that. They keep deferring us. And when the wives got upset, she got up and was like, there's obviously a disconnect. She was talking to Stencil, which is the head guy in Colorado for prison. And I kind of got upset too, because when he started replying to her, he said, which facility? And I chimed in and I was like, it's all facilities. Like, at the end of the day, if we don't want them in our groups, but if they can get a bird's eye view into the group, every single prison group for the state of Colorado, we they're all the same issues. We have vindictive COs. We have COs that go out of their way to start shit. We have COs bringing in contraband and they're blaming visits, which is, BS to me. But she brought up the accountability part too. And as many of you guys know, I went through a lot of shit in Lyman with my husband, and I went back and forth with the warden. If you listen to previous YouTubes about it, like, I got into it with them a couple of times. Their response to that was to move my husband further out. So I brought up that example and I'm like, hey, like, you claim to Stencil. And I got mad. I was pissed. When I'm mad, you can tell I'm mad. Like, it don't matter what I try to do. Like, I'm mad. So I was like, there's no other way to say it, but that's bullshit. Because, it was this lieutenant. And I called her out. I called her out in emails with everybody. I CC'd everybody under the sun about what was going on, what they had did to my husband and whatnot. I was like, and they're not held accountable. The staff's never held accountable. It's always the inmates. They're held accountable. We as family members, if we do something wrong, we're held accountable, but the staff never is. So I gave him that example and I got mad and he was like, I'm going to have to disagree with you. He's like, when you discipline your children, you don't do it in public. You don't tell everybody what you did to your kids. So it's the same for me. Like, when I discipline my staff, I don't tell you guys. And I was like, that's a lie. That, like, there's no accountability. And he was like, why do you say that? And I was like, you don't need to tell us that they've been disciplined Sorry, I don't know what happened. They don't need to tell us, you don't need to tell us that they've been disciplined or how they were disciplined. We would know by the change. We would see it, we would see the change, right? You would see what's going on. You would see a change. There's never a change. Oh. Okay, sorry guys, my husband called. But we don't need to know. We didn't need to know what they did to him. We would be able to see a change, right? We never see that. That's why I gave the example of what happened with my husband in that facility. So we did. I would say, I know it's hard. It's hard for me to take a PTO off for these meetings. They're always going to have them on a Wednesday. They're always going to be in the middle of the day. It's not the easiest for me to take the day off and go down there and you take time off from work and all of that. But I would say it's super good. And if you can do it, it's beneficial. The reason why I'm saying that is because at the end of these meetings, all the wardens are there from every facility, right? So when the meeting's over, everybody stays to talk to you. So I was able to talk one-on-one with the warden and lineman and the assistant warden and lineman. The first go round, I was able to start to talk to Stencil, pulled me aside and we talked one-on-one because I got so upset during the questioning and stuff. So, and he's the head of the prisons here in Colorado. And I explained to him the accountability thing, so that's why I say it would be good. Like we have enough, we're given enough notice about these meetings to where we can, jug our schedule. So I'd say if you can, I would make an effort to try to go to the next one, because even if they do Zoom meetings or you get updates from us, the way I'm updating you guys, like it's never the same when you actually get to stand there and ask them, confront them. We send them these emails, we don't get responses, you know what I mean? So it's good to be able to stand there and be like, hey, this is my question. This is what's going on. I was able to talk to the warden about, the Native Americans. For those who have listened to my lives before, that's a struggle for my husband and the people in his facility with the sweat lodges. So he's already on top of that. We talked about, I didn't just sit there and complain about everything. I'm like, hey, for example, with the wood, we can't get wood. It's a fight. So what can we do? You guys allow us to have Walmart things purchased and sent in, right? Because you're worried about contraband or whatever. And I get it. If that's the case, Walmart sells bundles of wood. Why can't I purchase the wood and have it sent in for the Native American, for the sweat lodge stuff? Why can't we do that? Why can't we put money towards the donation for that? But that's the problem with it too, is whoever their vendor is for the wood doesn't come through. And this is a constant battle, right? So if they're going to allow Christians and Catholics to do their thing, they should allow all religions the same rights, that, be equal around the clock on it. Or, I'm so tired, dude. You know what I'm saying? So I also asked about family reunification visits, that they should be offered at all facilities, not just that one facility or two facilities. So they're looking into that as well. We did, another one of my complaints, that was one of the questions that was talked about, was the food, the vending machines. Because we were told at the last visit, that we were going to get a new vending contract. And they said that they went through a 6-week process and the same vendor won the contract, because the same vendor is the only vendor that applied, which I find hard to believe, but that's what they're saying. So I brought up the fact that now we were able to purchase, a lot of you know, you used to be able to purchase, like, say, 2 burritos or 2 hamburgers for the $10 limit that we have on our cards. Now it's only 1. So I told him, with them being greedy, they're losing money, because instead of me buying 2 things for $10, now I can only buy 1 thing for $5.75. You know what I mean? Make it make sense. Then I also asked them, like, we're already being charged 4 times what something is worth in the store, in the vending machines. Like, there has to be some kind of guidelines that these vendors go by. They can't just charge us whatever they want. I also brought up the fact that during our visit, they came in the middle of the visit and they changed the prices and upped them crazy. So I'll give you an example of something that's wild, okay? A single serving of oatmeal. Like anybody can go to Walmart and get it, right? Quaker's Oat, apple cinnamon, same brand, same flavor. It's $1.26 at Walmart. We have to pay $4.75 for that. And I brought that up as an example. I was like, there has to be some kind of oversight. So they're looking at that. They're looking into that right now. Everybody that follows me that's in my Lyman group, I'm going to add these emails on there. We also talked about the Securus issues. So the assistant warden that used to be the assistant warden at Lyman, Kaylee, he runs that department. So anything that has to do with Securus, you guys ain't getting calls. We were complaining about how before on our video visits, like I can be in the video visit with my daughter. Now we can't do that. So they said that they do have discretion on lifting some of those security issues, which is that's one of them, because another lady was talking about that too, about her father being 94, not being able to see her son only through video visits. And now he can't do that because you can only have one person at a time. And it wasn't like that before. I don't see the security. We're over the internet. How are we going to do anything to the facility? Where's the security risk in that? And not only that, you can't just have anybody. It has to be somebody that's on their visiting list, right? They were talking about staffing issues, about the burnout for the COs, being burnt out, having to do double shifts, having all this massive overtime. And a lot of people, like, they were asking about the turnaround. We are getting better as far as the staffing, but they still got a ways to go with that. When I tell you there was a lot covered, there was a lot covered. Parole got up and talked about the ankle monitors. They said to review the policy. They review the policy annually, and it's 18-1.3.1.004 if you want to look it up. They talked about the sex offenders program. And that one, I have my own ideas and how I feel about that. So I'm not even going to touch on that, because they were asking, why is the DLC harder on sex offenders than anybody else? And I you know what I mean? I'm not even going to touch on that one, because I have my own thoughts and issues with that one. So, take it as you want. Then they did talk about drugs. So they said, this is the breakdown they gave us, okay? Over a year, I think he said it was something like July 31st of 2023 to July 31st of 2024. It was a year, right? There was 87 total cases. 21 was non-drug related, and then 35 was drug related through visiting. 2 were through legal visits, and then 1 was both legal visits and legal mail. They said 8 staff for the state penitentiaries were caught up, and 3 staff members from the private facilities were caught up. 2 cases where, drugs were thrown over the fence, or it was on that list. So here's the breakdown for facilities, okay? So Crawley had 14 cases. Lyman had 9. Sterling had, and these are all just visits. These are visits. You visitors, family members, whatever. So again, Crawley had 14, Lyman had 9, Sterling had 8, CSP had 7, Fremont had 6, Canyon Complex had 2, 4 Mile had 2, Trinidad had 2, Arrowhead had 1, CSP 2 had 1, Centennial had 5, Bent had 3, Buena Vista had 3, Territorial had 1, the women's facility had 1, and YOS, which is the young kids, had 1. That was for visitors, right? Those are all the cases for that year that they tracked it. For the staff members, it was 3 staff members in Crawley, 2 in CSP, 2 in Trinidad, 1 in Univista, 1 at the women's. So that's the one they caught in the women's was the staff member, 1 in Lyman and 1 in Sterling. So what they're basically trying to say is that it's not the staff, it's visiting. So what he said is, he was like, this is Central talking. He's like, I can stop contact visits altogether for all facilities. You know what I mean? But that's not going to solve anything either, because there's still drugs in there. And he didn't want to do that because that causes more problems for everybody. But it was like, to me, it was like, he annoyed me when he said that, because it's like, I don't think he was meaning it as a threat, but that's the way it came across to me, right? So that was basically the last thing they talked about. They did talk about time. I'm sorry, I got more stuff. That's what I'm telling you. It's like pages. Like we were there for hours. Stencil is going to go to, he said he's going to Norway in October to see their prisons, how they're set up. He's like, we can never mirror them, but he can take, some ideas from what they're doing and bring it back and try to implement them here in Colorado, which I think is a good idea, because Norway, if anybody knows about that, in my opinion, from what I know, it's better out there. Then he talked about the Fitzer lawsuit, which has to do with time comp. If you guys are interested in that, I'm going to be putting the emails again where you can reach out to them. And they're talking about, and I forgot to tell my husband about this, but the kites, everybody knows how the kites are. You write the piece of paper, whatever, and you leave it there. They're going to put the kites, they're trying to work the system to where they can put the kites on the tablets so that they can keep track. Because that was the question that one of the wives had, where she was asking, like how can they get proof that they submitted a kite? And I'm going to be honest with you. My husband said that a few times, where he put in kites, and they're like, we didn't get no kite from you. And he's like, dude, I put in like 2 or 3 kites. Like, there's no proof. There's no way to prove that they did that. So she was asking for that. And they start talking about back in the 90s when they had the carbon copies. So what they're trying to do is add the kites on the tablet, so there's tracking of what's going on. Then again, we talked about the accountability, because that's when I got upset. So I'm going to put out the email for the Securus issues, because any issues, any complaints that you guys have, like with the security, with the visits, with the calls, they need to go to Eddie Colley. And I'll put his email on our page for that, so you guys have that. And then Mitchell Carlson, and I'll put who these are. Like, you guys know, in our Lyman group, in the emails, I put the email and then I put who they are off to the side in parentheses. So I'll do that with these ones as well. Melissa Smith is another one that's director of prisons. So she's another one that you would reach out to, as well as Lisa Wiley. So the one thing that they did ask, because there was so much stuff covered, and I'm like trying to scribble, like you guys can see, like there's pages. I got pages of scribble from this meeting. But we did ask, one of the girls asked, because she didn't bring paper. It was her first time there, but she asked if we can get a copy of the questions and the answers that were asked. So they're working on that to try to get that out, put it out. If and when they do it, I will post it to our Lyman page. So I know that was a lot covered, guys. I'm sure I'm missing a few things here or there. It was a lot. It was hot. We're surrounded by a lot of people. It's just not my thing. But again, I would say thank you guys to those who submitted questions, because there was a ton more questions than there was in December. There was a lot more family members than there were in December. And they're asking what they can do to push this out to make sure more people are available for these meetings. And if you can, I strongly urge you to try to go to the next meeting, because when you can sit down and you can talk to them one-on-one and you can get answers and you can get emails, it's a better feeling, one, and something's being done. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people want to get on Facebook and complain, oh, this is going on and that's going on. But if you're just sitting in these groups that none of the people that have anything to do with DOC can see, like you're doing it for just, I guess, to vent, which is okay. But at the end of the day, we need our voices, we need their voices to be heard. You know what I mean? We need changes to be made, and the way to make them is to show up to these meetings and to get in their faces and to talk to them and bring these up, bring up the, you know, the issues that are going on. So I strongly, strongly suggest if you can go to the next meeting, please go. Again, when they put it out, like I did this last time, I'm going to post in my group. I'm going to post in all the Colorado family support groups like I did, with the question deadlines, the reservation deadlines, the meeting. I'll push it again because, I mean, if we all work together, we'll get changes done. And that's what's important at the end of the day. So if you guys have any questions, you can leave them for me here, my Lyman group. You can DM me privately with the questions. You can leave questions on the post. It's up to you. I'm always available. I'm always here to talk and help you guys through anything that you need, like I've been doing since I started that page. And a lot of the ladies, I'm really close with a few wives because, you know what I mean, that's how we are. Like, we're in this journey together. Everybody's going through the same stuff. So we need to help each other at the end of the day. So again, my DMs are open for you guys. You can leave messages here. You can leave messages on Facebook. It's up to you. But yeah, just honestly think about trying to go to the next meeting. Everybody have a good evening, and I'll see my regular people on Sunday for our live with my husband.